Commander Aaron Hale stood on the observation deck of the remote outpost, his eyes scanning the endless black of space. Stars glittered like distant jewels, but tonight they seemed colder, emptier. For months, he had been stationed here on the outskirts of the neutral star lanes, a place humans rarely ventured and where empires with far more power and experience ruled unchallenged. Humans were considered weak, inexperienced, and expendable. But Aaron had never believed that. He had trained for this moment, for the chance to prove that humans could survive anywhere, even among civilizations far older and stronger. The quiet of the station was broken by a faint signal on the communications console. It was weak, almost imperceptible, but Aaron recognized it immediately as a distress call. He frowned, bringing up the source on the star map. The signal came from a small craft drifting in a nearby asteroid field. It should have been abandoned, but the readings indicated life signs, just one. His instincts, honed over years of combat training, screamed at him that this was no ordinary emergency. Aaron activated his ship and prepared for launch. The outpost commander had given strict orders to avoid unnecessary contact with other species, especially in neutral space. Humans were too small, too insignificant to risk starting an interstellar incident. But Aaron ignored the orders. Something inside him would not allow him to leave a life at risk. His hand hovered over the launch button, and with a firm press, the Starwind shot into space, its engines humming as it navigated past jagged asteroids. As he approached the distressed ship, he noticed it was heavily damaged. Metal panels were torn, and strange scorch marks covered the hull. Something had attacked it, and the assailants had not left a trace. The life sign readings grew stronger, and Aaron saw movement inside through the cracked observation panel. There was a figure, barely conscious, struggling to reach a control panel. Aaron's heart quickened. Whoever was inside, they were still alive, and he was going to get them out. Docking carefully, he entered the wreck in full combat gear. The corridors were twisted, lights flickering, and the air was thick with smoke. He followed the life signs and found her in a small chamber, pinned under a piece of collapsed metal. The figure was humanoid, but the skin shimmered faintly with a golden hue, and her eyes were large and violet. Her clothing was elegant but torn, showing she was not a common traveler. She looked up at him with fear and relief mixed in her gaze. "Please," she whispered in a voice melodic but tense. "Help me." Aaron didn't hesitate. Using all his strength, he lifted the debris and pulled her free. She was light for her size, but her frame was fragile, clearly not built for combat. He carried her back to the Starwind, carefully lowering her onto the medical stretcher. Her breathing was shallow but steady. He quickly activated the ship's emergency systems, sealing the airlock and starting the life support protocols. "Who are you? What happened?" Aaron asked, his voice low but urgent. "My name is Liara," she said. "Princess Liara of the Solari Dominion." Her voice trembled. They tried to kill me." Aaron froze. The Solari Dominion was a peaceful yet influential civilization, known for their diplomacy and control over trade routes. That anyone would attack a princess from such a powerful empire was unthinkable. He studied her carefully. The fear in her eyes was real. She was telling the truth. "They came in fleets?" he asked cautiously. She shook her head. "A small strike team. They were precise. They knew where to find me. They must have had inside information." Aaron's mind raced. If a human had stayed uninvolved, the situation would never have touched them. But now he had Liara in his care, and the knowledge that powerful forces were hunting her. The odds were stacked against him, yet his decision was made. He would protect her, no matter the cost. "Can you move?" he asked. I can try," she said weakly. He supported her to the pilot's seat. She clutched the controls but couldn't operate them effectively. Aaron took the co-pilot position and guided the Star Wind out of the debris field. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, and for a moment, it was just them against the vast emptiness. But the stillness didn't last. Sensors picked up multiple fast-approaching ships, small but deadly interceptors that could overwhelm the Star Wind in minutes. Aaron's hands moved quickly across the console, dodging asteroids, launching decoys, and using the field's natural formations as cover. The ships fired relentlessly, their weapons creating brief flashes of light in the dark. Liara clutched the edge of her seat, eyes wide with awe and fear. Humans were not supposed to survive against such forces, but Aaron had trained for improvisation, for survival against impossible odds. And now, his skills would be tested for real. "You can't outrun them forever," Liara said, her voice tinged with worry. "I don't need to outrun them," Aaron said, his tone calm but firm. "I need to outsmart them." The Star Wind twisted and turned through narrow corridors of floating rocks, laser beams cutting close enough to singe the hull. Aaron's knowledge of human ships gave him an advantage. He knew how to push the engines beyond standard limits without damaging the core systems. With each maneuver, he could see the pursuer's frustration mounting. Liara's eyes followed his every move, a mixture of admiration and disbelief growing in her expression. Humans were indeed unpredictable. Hours passed in tense silence, the only sounds being the hum of the engines and Liara's shallow breathing. Finally, the last interceptor was disabled, caught in the Star Wind's clever trap using the field's debris. Aaron allowed himself a brief sigh of relief, glancing at Liara. She was still conscious, still alive, and for now, that was victory enough. "I never thought anyone would come," she whispered. "I didn't think I would either," he replied with a faint smile. The journey through the asteroid field had been only the first step. Liara revealed more about the danger she carried. "The Solari Dominion, they are powerful, yes, but I carry something far more important than myself, something that could change the galaxy." She paused, her violet eyes meeting his. "Every major empire wants it. If they capture me, or worse, kill me, the balance of power will shift, catastrophically." Aaron's jaw tightened. Humans were often underestimated because of their size, their lack of technology, and their youth as a spacefaring species. But he had seen what humans could do when pushed, when cornered, when they had something worth protecting. He understood now why he had been chosen for this moment, or perhaps why fate had placed him here. He knew that protecting her would mean becoming an enemy to every empire in the galaxy. There would be no safe zones, no neutral stations, and no chance to rest. But Aaron did not hesitate. "Then I'll make sure you stay alive," he said simply. "No one gets you while I'm here." Liara studied him, a mixture of relief and disbelief in her eyes. She had known soldiers, diplomats, even mercenaries, but none had shown this kind of raw determination and loyalty. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was their strength. She realized that she was not only in the hands of a protector, but perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humans all along. As they jumped into hyperspace, leaving the asteroid field behind, Aaron took a moment to study Liara again. He had no illusions about the journey ahead. Countless enemies would pursue them, each more dangerous than the last. He would have to rely on every skill he had, every bit of human ingenuity and resilience. But he also knew something more. The bond he had formed with Liara, born in crisis, would become their greatest weapon. In the quiet of the Star Wind's cabin, Liara allowed herself to rest, leaning slightly against Aaron. For the first time since the attack, she felt a flicker of safety. Humans were a young species, and yet she realized they carried something powerful, courage, loyalty, and the refusal to bow to fear. This human, this man named Aaron Hale, was living proof of it. As hyperspace streaked past, Aaron kept his eyes on the navigation console, planning their next move. Every decision would be critical. Every choice could mean life or death. But one thing was certain. He would not let anyone take her. Not now, not ever. Humanity's role in the galaxy was just beginning, and already they were proving that they could stand against forces far greater than themselves. Tonight, a human had chosen to defy orders, to challenge empires, and to protect a life worth saving. And in doing so, Commander Aaron Hale had set the stage for a story that would echo across the stars. A story of courage, loyalty, and the unyielding spirit of a species that would not be underestimated again. The star wind moved through the dark void of space, its engines leaving a faint blue trail as it slipped through hyperspace. Commander Aaron Hale kept his eyes on the navigation console, carefully charting a course through lesser-known star lanes to avoid detection. Beside him, Princess Liara rested, still pale from the injuries she had suffered, but her violet eyes now burned with determination. The flight had been long and exhausting, yet both of them knew this was only the beginning. Every empire in the galaxy would hunt them, drawn by the secret Liara carried, and Aaron understood that the survival of one young princess had suddenly become a matter of galactic consequence. "Where are we going?" Liara asked softly, her voice barely above the hum of the Starwind's engines. She could sense the tension in Aaron's movements. Every adjustment to the course, every minor check on the console, reflected his readiness for conflict. "To somewhere they won't expect," Aaron replied, keeping his eyes on the instruments. "Somewhere we can rest and plan. I can't hide forever, but I can delay them long enough to gain an advantage." Liara's lips pressed together. She had known skilled pilots, elite soldiers, and personal guards. But Aaron was different. His mind moved like a strategist's, always calculating possibilities and outcomes. But his courage and instinct were human, unpredictable, and utterly relentless. She could see why he had saved her despite the risk. Humans had a stubbornness she had rarely witnessed, a refusal to yield even in hopeless circumstances. Aaron adjusted the course slightly to avoid an approaching patrol, his hands moving over the controls with practiced precision. The small star wind was fast and maneuverable, but it carried little armor and could be destroyed easily by any warship. Aaron relied on his knowledge of terrain and enemy patterns, using the nearby asteroid belts and minor gravitational fields as shields and traps. Hours passed in tense silence. Liara had regained some strength, but she had not fully recovered. Her mind, however, was sharper than ever. She had studied the galaxy's political networks, and she knew that the moment word spread of her escape, every empire would send their most capable hunters. The more she thought about it, the more she realized the importance of what she carried. "You have to know," she said finally, turning to him. "I carry something more than myself, something that every empire wants. If they take me, or worse, if they destroy me, the consequences will be devastating." Aaron's brow furrowed. "What exactly do you carry?" Liara hesitated. "The Solari beacon," she said at last. "It is an ancient device built by my ancestors to stabilize the star lanes. It can also block or redirect entire fleets. In the wrong hands, it could control the flow of the galaxy's trade and military power. That is why they are hunting me. That is why they will not stop until I am captured or dead." Aaron's mind raced. Humanity had just begun exploring the galaxy, but already it had come face to face with powers far beyond its reach. Yet, as he looked at Liara, he understood something important. The galaxy had underestimated humans for a reason. They did not understand the unpredictable, relentless courage that defined them. He would not allow her to fall into anyone's hands. Not today, not ever. They approached the outskirts of a dense asteroid cluster, and Aaron used the Starwind's thrusters to weave through the jagged rocks. The pursuing ships were relentless, small but highly maneuverable interceptors, far superior in numbers. Laser fire traced arcs of light across the dark void, narrowly missing the hull of the Starwind. Aaron countered with decoy drones and calculated dives through the thickest parts of the cluster. The hunters were fast, but they were predictable, and he had patience. Liara watched in awe. "I have never seen anyone fly like that," she said. "Not even the best Solari pilots could match your instincts." Aaron allowed himself a brief smile, though his eyes never left the controls. "Humans have to survive," he said. "We don't have fleets or weapons like theirs, but we have something else. We adapt." Hours became days as they drifted from one hidden region to another. Liara, though recovering, had begun helping him with navigation, her sharp mind complementing his practical skill. They discussed the Solari Dominion, the history of the star lanes, and the empires that now hunted them. Liara realized that Aaron was not only brave, but intelligent, able to understand complex systems quickly and make decisions with limited information. He reminded her that the galaxy's smallest forces could have the largest impact if used wisely. One evening, as the Starwind coasted near a minor moon with a partially destroyed spaceport, Liara asked, "Why risk your life for me? Why not just leave me?" Aaron glanced at her. "Because no one deserves to die when it can be prevented," he said simply. "Because humans fight for what is right, even if we are small. Because you matter." Liara studied him, realizing that humanity's strength was not in numbers, technology, or ancient power. It was in courage, in loyalty, in the willingness to defy impossible odds. She had expected humans to be weak, to flee or submit. Instead, she found a man willing to stand against the galaxy's greatest powers to protect her. The night passed without incident, but the calm was temporary. Scanners soon picked up multiple incoming ships from different empires, converging on the Starwind's last known position. They were faster than anything Aaron had faced before. The interceptors surrounded them, coordinating attacks with ruthless precision. Aaron's hands flew over the controls, dodging, weaving, and creating impossible escape paths through the asteroid field. Each move was risky, but he relied on his instincts and his understanding of human unpredictability to outmaneuver them. "You can't fight them all forever," Liara said, concern evident in her voice. "I don't need to fight them all," Aaron replied. "I just need to survive long enough to find the right place to strike back. And I have a plan." With a sudden burst of speed, the Starwind dove into a dense asteroid belt. The pursuing ships followed, but Aaron had anticipated this. He activated magnetic pulse decoys that sent several of the interceptors spinning out of control, colliding with asteroids. Others were forced to break formation. The remaining hunters were enraged, underestimating the human again, and this allowed the Starwind to slip through a narrow gravitational gap that only a skilled pilot could navigate. Hours later, they emerged near a previously unmapped sector. Aaron allowed himself a moment to relax, knowing they had gained a temporary advantage. Liara, exhausted, leaned back in her seat, a faint smile on her lips. "You're incredible," she said softly. Aaron shook his head. "I'm just human. But sometimes, that is enough." As they charted a course for a remote outpost rumored to be neutral, Liara revealed more about the Solari beacon and its importance. She explained that it was not a weapon, but a device capable of controlling the stability of star lanes. It had been hidden for centuries, and now its power was the reason for the relentless hunt. "If it falls into the wrong hands," she said, "entire civilizations could be forced into submission, or star systems could collapse." Aaron's jaw tightened. Humanity was still small, new, and underestimated, but he realized that they could make a difference. Protecting Liara was not just about one life. It was about preserving balance in the galaxy, and humans had a way of achieving the impossible, not through sheer strength, but through ingenuity, courage, and determination. Days turned into nights in the cold vacuum of space. Aaron and Liara faced minor skirmishes, resource shortages, and constant tension as the empires searched relentlessly. Yet with each passing challenge, Liara's respect for Aaron grew. She had expected fear and hesitation. Instead, she found calm precision, quick thinking, and unwavering loyalty. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was their greatest strength. Finally, they reached the edge of a dense nebula where sensors were rendered almost useless. Aaron carefully navigated through the colorful gas clouds, using the environment to mask their presence. Liara assisted, noting energy fluctuations and anomalies that could betray them. For the first time, they felt a fleeting sense of safety. But both knew it was temporary. Every empire would continue hunting, driven by ambition, fear, and the desire to control the Solari beacon. As the star wind drifted silently through the nebula, Liara turned to Aaron with a newfound determination. "I don't know how we will survive this," she said, "but I know that I trust you, not just with my life, but with the future of the galaxy." Aaron looked at her, a steady calm in his eyes. "Then we survive," he said simply. "One step at a time, one challenge at a time. And we fight for what is right. Humans may be small, but we never give up. And neither will you." The nebula shimmered around them, a silent witness to the bond forming between human and princess, protector and ward. The galaxy's empires might think of humans as insignificant, but as Liara watched Aaron's unwavering determination, she realized that humans could stand against any force, defy any expectation, and change the course of history. The hunt was far from over. The galaxy would come to understand the danger of underestimating a human willing to protect what was right, and a young princess who had learned that courage came in many forms. Together, they would face the impossible, outsmart the powerful, and perhaps change the galaxy forever. Tonight, the star wind drifted in the quiet expanse, carrying a human and a princess far from safety, but closer than ever to proving that courage, loyalty, and the human spirit could survive anything, even the relentless pursuit of entire empires. The star wind had carried them as far as it could. Its engines were strained, the shields worn thin from constant evasive maneuvers, and the small cargo of supplies was nearly gone. Commander Aaron Hale studied the navigational display carefully, plotting a route to the nearest habitable moon, one long abandoned and forbidden to most travelers. The moon was rocky and covered in dust storms, with jagged canyons and cliffs that made landing difficult. Yet it was exactly the kind of place where a human could disappear from the eyes of entire fleets. Princess Liara watched him from the co-pilot seat, her face pale, but her violet eyes sharp with determination. She had recovered somewhat from her injuries. But the exhausting journey through hyperspace and constant threats had taken its toll. Yet she refused to rest fully. The secrets she carried, the Solari beacon, made her a target. Every choice now could mean life or death, not just for her but for countless others. And she had come to trust Aaron more than anyone else she had ever known. Aaron's hands moved over the controls with calm precision. The star wind shook as it passed through the outer atmosphere of the moon. Winds ripped across its hull, and dust clouds churned violently around them. "We'll have to land in the canyon below," he said. "It's narrow, but it will keep us hidden from sensors. Stay close." Liara nodded. "I trust you," she said quietly, though she still felt a shiver of fear. "I don't know if anyone else could have done this." The Star Wind's landing was rough. Aaron used every ounce of skill he had, guiding the ship through twisting winds and jagged rocks, scraping against cliff edges, but avoiding catastrophic damage. Finally, it touched down in a small crater, dust billowing around them like smoke. Aaron cut the engines and let the star wind settle. Outside, the moon was silent, desolate, and empty. They had arrived, but they were far from safe. Stepping outside, Aaron scanned the horizon. The moon was lifeless, but the terrain was dangerous. Sharp rocks jutted out of the ground, and small tremors made the surface unstable. Liara moved beside him, her gaze taking in the strange landscape. "This place is terrifying," she said softly. "Terrifying is good," Aaron replied. "It keeps them from looking here." He knew that staying on the moon would only delay the inevitable. Their pursuers were relentless, and sooner or later they would find them. But for now, it was a chance to rest, to plan, and to prepare. They moved carefully through the canyon, using the shadows of cliffs and boulders to hide their presence. Liara had begun to notice something remarkable about humans. Even in the face of danger, Aaron never panicked. His mind worked constantly, assessing threats, calculating risks, and finding ways to survive against overwhelming odds. It was a combination of courage and intelligence that Liara had never seen in her own kind. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the canyon. They discovered the remnants of an old Solari outpost, abandoned centuries ago. Its walls were cracked, and many sections had collapsed, but some rooms remained intact. Aaron helped Liara climb through the broken corridors until they reached a chamber that had been preserved. Strange symbols adorned the walls, glowing faintly in the low light. "This is ancient," Liara whispered. "These symbols, they are part of my people's history, and they might hold the key to activating the Solari beacon safely." Aaron studied them, tracing the lines with his fingers. Though he had no formal training in Solari history or technology, he had learned to observe, to deduce, and to improvise. Slowly, he began to understand the patterns. "I think I can help," he said. "If I follow the logic here, we might be able to access what you need without triggering any defenses." Liara's eyes widened. She had expected a human to be brave, maybe even clever in combat. But she had never imagined one could decipher Solari symbols so quickly. "You're incredible," she said softly. I never thought anyone could do this but me." "Humans are adaptable," Aaron replied. "Give us a problem, and we find a solution, even if the odds are against us." As they worked, the sound of movement outside the outpost caught their attention. Sensors on the Star Wind had been offline since landing, but Aaron had brought a portable scanner from the ship. The readings indicated multiple ships approaching, coordinating as a single force. They had been tracked. The Empires had found them. Aaron's jaw tightened. "Get ready," he said. "They'll come through quickly. We have to be ready to defend ourselves." The first wave of soldiers arrived at the edge of the canyon, their armored suits glinting in the faint light. They were humanoid, but clearly not Solari, their movements precise and deadly. Liara's eyes widened as she realized the full scale of the threat. "We can't fight them all," she said, fear creeping into her voice. Aaron shook his head. "We don't have to fight them all," he said. "We just need to survive long enough to activate the outpost defenses. Then we might have a chance to escape." The battle began with a sudden explosion as Aaron used the narrow canyon walls to funnel the attackers. He had rigged small traps using debris and rocks, causing several soldiers to stumble and fall. Liara watched, amazed, as the human's ingenuity turned the terrain itself into a weapon. "Look at them!" Liara exclaimed. "They're so relentless!" "Humans are stubborn," Aaron said. "We never give up." The attackers adapted quickly, using advanced sensors and weapons to track them. Aaron and Liara moved deeper into the outpost, navigating through crumbling hallways while dodging energy blasts and automated traps. Every step was calculated. Every choice was life or death. Yet Aaron never hesitated. His focus was unwavering. Finally, they reached a control chamber that seemed intact. Ancient consoles hummed faintly with residual power. Liara rushed forward, touching the panels with reverence. "This is it," she said. "This is where we can activate the Solari beacon." Aaron scanned the room quickly. "We have to be careful," he said. "If we trigger any defenses wrong, they'll know exactly where we are." Liara nodded and began entering sequences from memory, tracing patterns on the glowing panels. Aaron watched the doorways, keeping an eye on the advancing soldiers. One of the pursuers fired a blast at the control chamber, but Aaron deflected it with a small energy shield he had carried from the Star Wind. Sparks flew, but they held firm. Minutes stretched into tense hours as they worked. Liara's fingers moved quickly, recalling the ancient codes her ancestors had left. Aaron guided her, helping decipher sequences and ensuring no mistakes were made. Outside, the soldiers advanced methodically, but they were cautious now, unsure of what defenses the outpost still held. At last, Liara entered the final sequence. The chamber trembled, and a deep hum echoed through the outpost. Hidden doors slid open, revealing defensive mechanisms and emergency energy fields. Aaron watched as automated turrets rose from the walls, scanning the approaching intruders. The attackers were caught off guard, retreating momentarily as the outpost's ancient systems activated. Liara turned to Aaron, relief flooding her face. "We did it," she said. "We have time, enough to escape." Aaron nodded. "This is only temporary. They'll regroup. But it's enough for now. We keep moving." The temporary calm gave them a chance to breathe, but both knew the danger was far from over. The galaxy was vast, but every empire could project power across the stars. They had delayed the hunters, but they could not hide forever. Yet even in the face of overwhelming odds, Aaron's human spirit never wavered. He had proven that courage, determination, and quick thinking could overcome seemingly impossible challenges. As they prepared to leave the outpost, Liara reflected on everything she had seen. Humans were underestimated, yes, but they possessed qualities her people often overlooked: adaptability, courage, loyalty, and the willingness to risk everything for what was right. Aaron embodied all of these traits, and she knew that with him by her side, she had a chance to survive, and perhaps to protect the galaxy from falling into chaos. The Star Wind lifted off once more, leaving the canyon and the partially reactivated outpost behind. Dust swirled around them as the engines roared, but for the first time in days, Liara felt a glimmer of hope. They had survived another attack, outsmarted relentless enemies, and activated the ancient defenses. Yet both knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy's empires would not give up, and their pursuit would grow more relentless. Aaron charted a course for the outer reaches of a nearby nebula, a region largely avoided due to its unpredictable gravitational fields and radiation pockets. It was a dangerous path, but one that could mask their movements from pursuers. Liara helped, using her knowledge of Solari navigation to guide them through safe passages and avoid natural hazards. As they entered the nebula, Liara glanced at Aaron, a mixture of admiration and respect in her eyes. "You never stop," she said. "Even when everything seems impossible, you keep going." "I'm human," he replied with a small smile. "We survive. We fight, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's what makes us dangerous to those who underestimate us." The nebula stretched endlessly ahead, glowing with swirling gases and distant stars, barely visible through the thick clouds. The Star Wind moved cautiously, each small adjustment calculated to avoid detection. Outside, the galaxy was vast, full of dangers and enemies, but inside the cabin, human and princess shared a quiet determination. Together, they were more than just a small ship and two people. They were a force that could defy empires, outwit hunters, and protect the future. The journey ahead would be long, and the dangers greater than ever. But Aaron Hale had proven that a single human, with courage, intelligence, and determination, could stand against impossible odds. Liara realized that her trust was not misplaced. With him at her side, she had a chance to survive, to fulfill her mission, and perhaps to change the galaxy forever. Tonight, the star wind drifted through the swirling nebula, carrying a human and a princess far from safety, but closer than ever to proving that courage, loyalty, and the human spirit could survive anything, even the relentless pursuit of entire empires. And as they moved forward, both knew that humanity's role in the galaxy was only beginning, and that their actions in the coming days could echo across the stars for generations to come. The star wind drifted through the outer edge of the nebula, engines low, shields barely humming. Commander Aaron Hale knew that every moment of calm was borrowed time. The fleets of multiple empires had not given up, they were relentless, and every second counted. Yet, the nebula offered them an advantage. Its thick clouds and shifting electromagnetic fields masked their location, making sensors unreliable. Aaron used this to his favor, carefully charting a course toward an ancient Solari outpost that had been rumored to house remnants of the beacon's original systems. Princess Liara sat beside him, her violet eyes scanning the displays. Despite the exhaustion etched on her face, there was determination there, sharper now than ever. She had seen Aaron's human spirit tested again and again, and each time it had emerged stronger. He had protected her through asteroid fields, hunted fleets, and the treacherous terrain of a forbidden moon. She understood now why humans were underestimated. They were clever, unpredictable, and unyielding. "We can't stay hidden forever," Liara said, her voice steady but tense. "They will track us, and when they do, we'll be trapped." Aaron nodded without taking his eyes off the navigation console. "I know. That's why we move fast. And we move smart. The outpost we're heading for has defenses. If we can reach it, we might have a chance to turn the tables." The Star Wind's engines roared as it pushed deeper into the nebula. The swirling gases glowed in shades of violet and orange, creating a surreal landscape that stretched as far as the eye could see. For a brief moment, the galaxy seemed quiet, almost peaceful, but both Aaron and Liara knew better. This calm was the eye of the storm, and the storm was coming. Sensors picked up the faint energy signatures of pursuing ships, more than before, faster and better coordinated. They were closing in, led by elite hunters from multiple empires, each skilled and ruthless. Aaron's jaw tightened. Every maneuver would have to be precise, every choice calculated. There would be no room for error. He twisted the star wind through the nebula's dense pockets, dodging magnetic storms and gravity distortions. Laser fire streaked past them, hitting the nebula's clouds and creating flashes of light that illuminated the interior of the ship. Liara clutched the edge of her seat, watching in awe as Aaron guided them through impossible paths. "How are we still alive?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. "Humans adapt," Aaron said simply. "We survive, we fight, we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's what makes us dangerous." Hours passed in tense silence as the star wind navigated the maze of cosmic hazards. Every attack was met with quick thinking and daring maneuvers. They lost several small ships to magnetic turbulence, while others collided with gas pockets in the nebula, slowing the pursuers just enough for the star wind to stay ahead. Finally, they reached the ancient outpost. It hovered silently on the edge of a small planet, partially in ruins, but still intact enough to hold secrets long forgotten. Irene guided the Starwind down through narrow approach corridors, avoiding collapsed docking bays and unstable surfaces. Liara's eyes widened as she recognized the symbols etched into the outpost's structure. Ancient Solari glyphs glowing faintly as if waiting for her. "This is it," she whispered. "This is where we can activate the beacon." Aaron parked the Starwind in a concealed area, shutting down the engines to avoid detection. Together, they exited the ship and approached the main control chamber. Liara's fingers traced the glowing symbols as she prepared to input the activation sequences. Aaron stood beside her, scanning the horizon for any sign of enemies. It didn't take long for the attackers to arrive. The hunters had tracked them relentlessly and now approached in force. Armored soldiers poured out of landing shuttles, weapons ready, their movements coordinated and deadly. Liara's heart pounded, but she did not falter. She had trusted Aaron through every impossible situation, and she knew he would not let them be captured. Aaron activated makeshift barriers and traps, using debris and energy fields to slow the attackers. The canyon-like structure of the outpost allowed him to funnel enemies into narrow passages, giving them a small advantage. Each time a soldier advanced, Aaron and Liara countered with quick thinking and precise actions, buying time for the activation process. Minutes felt like hours as Liara worked on the ancient controls. Sparks flew and alarms sounded, but her fingers moved steadily, recalling sequences stored in her memory. Aaron blocked attackers, deflected energy blasts, and improvised constantly, turning the ruins into a battlefield that only a human could navigate with such precision. Finally, Liara completed the final sequence. A deep hum resonated through the outpost, and a faint light spread across the walls. Hidden turrets rose from the floors and ceilings, scanning the attackers and opening fire on their unshielded armor. Energy fields activated, creating a barrier that pushed back the intruders. The elite soldiers were caught off guard, retreating as the outpost's automated systems took control. Aaron lowered his weapon slightly but remained alert. "It's working," he said. "We have a chance." Liara looked at him, relief flooding her features. "We did it. We actually did it," she said softly. "The beacon, it's activated." The activation did more than defend them. Signals spread across the galaxy, stabilizing nearby star lanes and blocking strategic routes the empires had planned to use for war and conquest. Reports came quickly. Fleets were disrupted. Trade and military operations faltered. And the empires realized that one human and a princess had changed the balance of power. Aaron and Liara moved to a secure observation point, watching the results unfold. The galaxy, once confident in its dominance, now had reason to fear. Humans once considered insignificant had proven that courage, ingenuity, and determination could challenge even the strongest forces. Liara turned to Aaron, admiration and gratitude in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You saved my life. And now, the galaxy owes you more than it knows." Aaron shook his head. "We saved it together," he said. "Humans may be small, but we never give up. That is what makes us strong." Outside the outpost, the attackers had retreated, their fleets scattered and damaged. Communications showed confusion and panic among their leaders. Humanity's reputation had shifted. No longer were humans underestimated. They had survived impossible odds, protected a princess, and activated a device that could change the galaxy's fate. Liara made a decision. She declared publicly, using the Solari communications network, that Aaron Hale was her protector, that he had saved her life, and that humans had proven themselves capable of shaping history. Across the galaxy, races who had mocked or ignored humanity now reconsidered their view. The young species that had once been dismissed now had a place in the annals of galactic history. Aaron and Liara prepared to leave the outpost. The star wind was repaired just enough to make short jumps, but the long-term threat remained. The empires would recover, and new challenges would arise. Yet for the first time, they had hope. Humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and determination could defy impossible odds. As they lifted off from the outpost, leaving the ruins and the activated beacon behind, Liara spoke softly. "What happens now?" Aaron glanced at her, a small smile on his face. "Now we keep moving. We protect the galaxy, one step at a time. They'll keep coming, but we'll be ready. Humans don't give up. And neither will you." The Star Wind sailed into the stars, a tiny human ship carrying two determined souls. One was a young princess whose knowledge and courage had been tested beyond imagination. The other was a human, underestimated by the galaxy, yet capable of feats that no empire had anticipated. Together, they had survived impossible odds, outsmarted powerful fleets, and proven that even a single human could change the course of history. The nebula behind them shimmered in silence, a reminder of the dangers they had faced and the victories they had earned. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been altered forever. The empires that once saw them as weak now regarded them with respect and caution. Commander Aaron Hale had shown that courage, loyalty, and determination were not bound by size or technology, and that a human willing to fight for what was right could stand against any force. Liara looked at him once more, her violet eyes reflecting the glow of distant stars. "I will never forget what you have done," she said. "You saved more than me. You saved countless lives, and you changed the galaxy." Aaron's gaze was steady. "And the journey is just beginning," he said. "This is only the start. The galaxy will keep testing us, but humans, we are ready." Together they sailed onward, leaving behind the ruins, the remnants of attackers, and a galaxy that had learned a vital lesson. Never underestimate a human willing to protect what is right. Never doubt courage born from loyalty. And never forget that even one small species could stand against the greatest powers and emerge victorious. The Star Wind disappeared into the stars, carrying a human and a princess into the unknown, prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them, and determined to ensure that the light of hope, courage, and humanity would never fade.